Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Roy Richardson, coming to you here from Orlando. Also Vice President of Aurora Infotech, a cybersecurity firm based here in Orlando, catering to security needs for businesses, small to medium-sized businesses throughout the region and elsewhere. And I'm extremely excited today because I have with me somebody who's a mentor to me, a coach. He's a serial entrepreneur with a 50-year career in sales and building businesses. Started, grew, and successfully ran 5 businesses and 2 publications so far, from everything from record stores to direct marketing agency to custom cakes, and was also a Sandler Trainer for over 20 years with 40 years experience in the system. And I'm speaking to none other than Eric Shulman, who is today from Inside Man. And he's going to tell us more all about his journey. He's going to share with us, some tips and tricks with regards to sales and things we should be looking for as business leaders, but also, share a little bit with us in terms of what he's doing now that he's moved on from Sandler. Eric, welcome.
Roy, thank you so much for inviting me. It's funny, when I hear the intro, I feel like I'm 108 years old who's done all that stuff. I did start when I was very young. I started working in my grandfather's drugstore when I was 10 or 12 years old. And then I worked in my dad's record store from 12 to 20. And then the rest is history after that. So I just got to start working early. And, I always like to have money in my pocket, I think, was part of the reason.
Money was the motivator.
It's interesting. As a kid, one of the things that I always was different from me, from everybody else, and I grew up in the 60s, was I was the one that always had money in my pocket because I was always working from a very, very young age. I did I ever tell you about my first business?
No, share with us, please.
Oh, my first business, this is actually funny. I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and I got a guinea pig, right? We had hamsters there. I got a guinea pig's a little nut, and we had fun with the guinea pig, so I got a couple of other guinea pigs. Well, I found out about 2 months later that 1 was male and 3 were female.
Oh, boy.
So 2 months into this, Roy, I had 27 guinea pigs.
Holy.
So my dad built a big cage thing, and we went out. I bought a bale of hay for $1.25. We put it in the trunk of my mom's station wagon, took it home. I went to the food store and I bought a bag of rabbit food, and I fed and I had bedding and I had the stuff. Well, about a month and a half, 2 months later, I've got 27 decent sized guinea pigs.
Yeah.
So I can't keep them all. So what do? Roy, you're going to love this. I gave them away to all the kids in the neighborhood, free. And I sold hay and food.
So you became their supplier.
The demand, and I had so I didn't even know what I was doing. And so I was selling hay for 25 cents. Remember the brown shopping bags?
Yeah.
As much hay as you could fit in a brown paper shopping bag was a quarter. Stuff it as full as you want. Do you have any idea how many shopping bags full of hay you can get out of one bale? A bale cost $1.25. I was getting 25 cents a shopping bag and getting 100 shopping bags or more out of the bale of hay. So nice. I went into the hay and the food business. That literally, and I had very few people, that was my first business venture. So at a very early age, I became a capitalist, I guess.
But that's amazing. You, like you said, you created the system where you created the demand, yeah. where and then became the supplier for the demand. Pretty interesting.
I played in rock bands and I sold aspirin, right?
So tell me a little bit in terms of transitioning from the neighborhood hayman to where you ended up with Sandler and being a sales coach really to tons and tons of people, not only here in Central Florida but the world over. Share with us.
Well, as you can guess, I was selling stuff at a very, very early age. I went to work in the record business because my dad opened a record store 6 months before the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. So I'm the 13-year-old kid in junior high whose dad owns the record store. So I was selling records and guitars and amps all through high school. And I was very good at it. I learned to talk to people. You know, mom taught me don't talk to strangers. 2 weeks into opening the store, we got busy, and my mom said, go talk to that man. So my mother told me to go talk to a stranger. So I overcome the fear of talking to strangers at a very early age. And talk about leveling the playing field. I am 5'6", fully grown. Well, most people I met with were your size to me. So, hello, sir, can I help you? So you learn not to be intimidated by people bigger than you, whether it's bigger in size or bigger in business. So you sort of learn that kind of stuff just by being. Retail is not a bad place to start. I realized we sold the stores in Jersey. We moved to Orlando in '73. And by the end of the '70s, I realized, Roy, that I was never going to get rich in my dad's business because my brothers were involved, mom and dad, myself, everybody's married. I did the math. And dad had always said, you're never going to get rich in the retail business. You'll always make a good living. I didn't know what rich was, but I wanted to be rich. So I left the family business. I've been doing marketing. I sort of floundered around for a couple of months, settled on direct mail marketing, bought a Data General computer with 64K of RAM and a 25 megabyte Winchester hard drive.
Which was probably top of the line back then.
Top of the line with custom software to just do nothing but type letters and labels and envelopes. And that with an NEC spin writer, for those of you under 50, that's like a typewriter attached to it, was $28,500 back in 1980 for basically what would be a word processor, okay? To just take a mailing list and merge it with letter. And I started typing letters. I made a living for 3 years. And in 1983, one of my clients, a guy by the name of Jerry, I still remember him 40 years later, handed me a manual by David Sandler. I read the manual. The manual said everything you're currently doing in sales is wrong. Not some of the stuff, Roy, all of it. For instance, what's the one word that you want to hear at the end of a sales call with any good prospect?
The one word you want to hear at the end of the
Yeah. What do you want to hear? It begins with Y. It's 3 letters long. What do you
Yes.
want to hear them say?
Yes.
Okay. What is everybody else trying to get them to also say?
Yes.
David Sandler says if everybody else is doing it, do the opposite. So out of a manual, wrong way to learn how to do anything is out of a manual, I started going for no. Yeah, but you don't want to fix this today. And people started saying, well, yeah, no, I do want to fix it today. And what I realized, it made it easier on me. I got into sales because I'm ambitiously lazy. I've been saying this for 25 years. I wanted to make a lot of money. I didn't want to work hard. And this was just an easier way to sell. So I began using pieces of this. And my business took me 3 years to get it to one employee sharing an office. And I was handed the manual. 3 years later, after a couple of moves, I moved into 17,000 feet. I had 54 full-time people. I was doing most of the sales. And the only thing that changed, I was using pieces out of this manual. So done badly, it worked well. Sold that business, met Sharon. She had Sprinkles Custom Cakes, was a wedding cake store. She was making a living, doing okay, but only doing 4 or 5 cakes a month, and thought she was competing with the grocery store because she was priced the same because they were half a mile away, $1.25 a slice. She asked me to get involved in her business. We've been married 26 years now, so I did. That was the best sale I ever made.
The best close.
Yeah, well, you got to keep it closed too. You know, keep the client happy. But she asked me to get involved in her business. So I looked at the business. First thing I said is, "You're too cheap." She says, "Well, my competition is $1.25. I got to be the same." I said, "That's not your competition." I remember this is 1992. What I said to her then was, Cadillac does not compete with Yugo. Today it would be Lexus does not compete with Kia.
Yeah.
Because she was baking a Cadillac product, but competing with a grocery store cake. And she got afraid. She says, if we do that, we're going to lose half the business. I said, do the math. If you do 2 cakes a month at $2 a slice, you net more dollars than doing 4 cakes a month at $1.25. And she's a high C, so she did the math and she said, you're right. And she decided at that point I was going to be sales and marketing and she was going to be production and creative. So now I had never sold wedding cakes before, but I applied what I got out of the manual. And in 6 months, we went from 4 or 5 a month to 15 to 20 a week. We went from an average of $1.25 to an average of $1.75 to $2. We had 7 people working for us. So the process itself worked in the cake business. We sold that business in '95. And I was unemployed, went to work for a consulting company, only job I've ever held. And they used professional Sandler trainers. So I got fed for 2 full weeks and trained and then sent to live in Rochester, New York. They said the close ratio is 5%, good is 10%. We'll give you 15 a week. If you close 1 in the first month, you're the golden child. I had 12 appointments that held my first week. I closed 3 out of 12, which was 25%. And understand this, where it wasn't because I was that good. I got very good at using this process.
Yeah, yeah.
Trained in I had 2 weeks of practice in the process. I sold 9 in the first month. My close ratio, and I actually still have all the paperwork, stayed between 17 and 31% historically over an 8-year period in an industry that has a 5% average, 10% good, 15% excellent close ratio.
That's pretty impressive.
And understand this, I'm good at what I do, but I'm really good at using the process, the system. Having a selling system or selling process is something a lot of salespeople don't have. And whether you use my process, spin selling, or whatever the process is you use, you have to have a process. You have a process for accounting and doing IT security work, Roy. You've got a process to do an audit and to make sure everything is secure. And
That's
most
true.
salespeople sell based on their personality. You're good with people, you're going to be in sales, and then 20 years later, you wake up looking like you and I with very little or no hair, and we're still in sales. And we don't have 20 years of experience. We have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times.
Yeah, yeah.
I like to ask mature salespeople, when was the last time you actually learned something new that you used on a sales call? And when they start going like this, then you know that they're not learning. So
interesting.
I opened the Sandler office in 2003, April Fool's Day of 03, when they told me they were going to start limiting my income, and I was 100% commission. And I did that for the last 20 years. I merged my office with another Sandler gentleman last year. I'm still working for him, but I got bored being home with COVID. And I said, what am I good at? I'm good at sales. I'm good at business. What have I helped other business owners see their business a little more clearly? Not your typical business consultant who tells you, you pay them, $1,000 to tell you, what time it is, and he borrows your watch to tell you what time it is. How about somebody who is willing to come in and literally fix things on the first day? Sometimes it's as simple as moving somebody in a position, or changing 1 or 2 questions that are being asked when someone calls in. But there's a lot of things that can be fixed very, very simply. And sometimes it just takes that outside eye.
That's true. That's true. And so this is where you transition now into Inside Man.
Yeah.
Which is your new firm now, since you retired, and if I may say that,
I'm not retired. I just sold one business, and now I'm starting another. My plan is I'm going to work for the 5, 6, 7 years. And what's interesting is this: my mantra is about exit engineering your business so that eventually a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road, the business is set up that it's a saleable entity, that it doesn't need you. Because most business owners run their business like owning their own job. They stay busy, they make good money, but the moment they fall down, the business can't survive. Instead of a pyramid looking like this, it's a pyramid looking like this,
like that,
on their head. And they're doing this all day long, trying to keep
balance
that pyramid balanced. Got to make payroll, got to make this sale, got a problem with so-and-so. When really a business should be able to run by itself with systems and processes, not based on a personality. Because if the business is in your head, you don't have anything that's saleable. But when you get the business out of your head and into other people's heads, and you create systems and processes and a management structure where you can step back for a week and not call in and it runs, you're on the first phase. You can go away for a month and not call in. Now you've got a business that pretty much will run itself.
And I'm sure that you probably just, just with what you said there, Eric, there are probably a lot of our listeners here who may be scratching their heads saying, wow, this is kind of what I was looking for. But, and a lot of business owners will recognize the fact that they need to have a process. They need to have, repeatable patterns and a culture by which they run their business. But what's your advice for, that lost business person who's looking to go down a path of having an established processes so that they can become successful?
The first step is you have to admit you don't know everything. And you don't know what you don't know, and it's good to know what you don't know. So the first thing, and most business owners, and I'm guilty of this, and so are you, we're not humble people. Mm. We believe in ourselves. We're that D or A type personality, depending upon which methodology you use, is going to plow forward and make things happen. And they always want to be right. The problem with our personality type is the high D. If I say it, it must be true, is the attitude of a high D. So the first thing is, it's very, very tough for some business owners to get vulnerable. What I have always been good at, what made me good in the management consulting field, what made me a success in Sandler, what made me a success in the direct marketing world, and even in the cake world, is I was able to get in and talk to people at the top of organizations. And here's the key word: as an equal, with equal business stature. Whether they make $400 million a year or $40,000 a year, you talk to them like an equal. And you look them in the eye and you become disarmingly honest with people, which means that you and I have to be vulnerable when we're talking to these people. We're not perfect either.
Right.
It's interesting. People go in to try and sell people stuff. And when I meet people, I would sit down, Roy and I would chat a little bit. We'd learn a little bit about each other. I'd say hello to Luska, your wife. And finally I said, all right, Roy, we got 30 minutes. Why am I here? What are you hoping I might be able to help you with today? As opposed to, Roy, let me tell you about my training, my IT work, my product, my service, which is where most people start. Why am I here is a great question. It's what a doctor does when you go to the doctor. Hey, Roy, you're looking good. Looks like you dropped a couple of pounds. How's the wife and kids doing? Great. So why are you here today? What seems to be the problem? That's what the doctor says, right?
Right.
So if you put a little sign that says the doctor is in on your forehead before you walk in or before you pick up the phone or go on a Zoom call, and you become that doctor just trying to do a diagnosis. I love doctors and surgeons who don't want to cut, who will look for every way not to do the operation. I had to talk to an attorney the other day about a potential lawsuit. I don't like to sue people at all. And rather than trying to talk me into doing the suit, what the attorney said, he says, look, based on everything I've said, I think you should sit tight and do X, Y, and Z and let this sit until the beginning of next year. And if you're still having problems, that he wasn't anxious to, hey, we can get this filed today. It was more about, giving me the advice that I needed in the moment. If you need the operation, look, this is bone on bone. That's why you can't walk. If we don't fix that, you're going to be crippled for life. We do have to operate. That's one situation. My wife's got a situation with her back right now. She's got a problem at L4, L5. She's got stenosis and she's got the nerve being pressed on. Well, she's getting a massage therapist to come to the house every week who does stretching massage, which is starting to help. She's had 4 or 5 series of shots in the lower back and in the neck to relieve the tension in the muscles. And she's trying every alternative. We're actually meeting with the surgeon this week to let him know that we're not going to go through surgery because we're looking for the alternatives. So the doctor who's anxious to cut, hey, we had a special on shoulders. Why don't you hop up on the table? We'll do it today. That's not the doctor you want. You want the doctor that's going to do the x-rays, the MRIs, get a second opinion, try physical therapy, try everything non-surgical before they ever pick up a scalpel. And as a sales or business professional, you have to have the same level of ethics where you're not there to sell them. You're there to find out what they need and make a friend. And if they happen to need what we have, they're going to ask us for it before we leave. And if they don't, and you can lead them to the right solution, then lead them to the right solution. You got to think long term. It's not about making a sale. It's about starting the beginning of a relationship that might lead to a sale, and it might just lead to being friends.
And which brings me into some of the coaching and training that, and as I mentioned to everyone, that Eric has been a mentor and a coach, and still is a mentor and a coach to me. And this goes back to Sandler's bonding and rapport, and establishing a relationship, building a relationship of trust with people. Oftentimes, I'm sure it's the same with you. particularly now in COVID, my phone rings off the hook, and it's either the phone ringing off the hook or it's a LinkedIn connection that's coming in. And people, from the time you connect with them, the next message that comes across is sell, 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 sell. But I don't even know you. We don't know each other. You have no idea what my requirements are.
Roy, I hate it when I get more emails from you, being the person trying to reach me, than I'd ever get from my mother or my wife. If you're emailing me more than my mother, you're emailing me too much. Yeah, it's like today's reminder. Did you forget today's reminder? Last minute before you go to sleep, and then the next morning there's 4 more. And I'm saying, where are the Ginsu knives? As opposed to 3 or 4 days later, you get a note. Hey, Roy, really enjoyed speaking with you about X, Y, and Z. I had a suggestion for you on this. And oh, by the way, you bring up something personal that may have come up. I know your wife likes Greek food. Mykonos at 434 has really good spanakopita. Give it a try. Talk to you soon. And now you're actually having a conversation with people. Don't try to sell people stuff. Have conversations with people. If they need what you have, after they feel comfortable with you, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. So before they ever want to consider buying anything, they're trying to figure out is, do I trust this guy? Do I like him? Am I comfortable with him?
That is true. That is true. So since we're talking about these hurdles that a lot of salespeople tend to go through, and a lot of businesses might be going through, why would a business or a person need someone like you, Eric? And a lot of, unfortunately, and we see this in the security world from the opposite side, right? A lot of businesses really don't think that they may need someone like you. So because they think everything is buttoned up and working fine. So share with us.
Let me ask you a question, Roy.
Sure.
If you had cancer, would you want to know it?
Yes.
Well, how would you know if you had cancer if no doctor ever took a look? So here's the thing, and here's the problem. The book by Jim Collins, Good to Great, says that good is the enemy of great. And most businesses and most business owners are doing good. They're making a living. They're surviving through COVID. They've laid off a couple of employees. They've changed how they do business. They're still hanging on. We're going to make it through this. We're doing good because we're still alive. Other people have gone out of business. And good is the enemy of great. Because to get from good to great, you have to change something. And whenever you change something, it's not a straight line from here to here. There's a little dip, like changing your golf swing. Your instructor says you're doing well. You're shooting 90. Okay, you're shooting bogey golf. But let's take your hand and let's move this thumb over a little bit this way and bring this elbow down. Now, first time you do that, that feels weird. Just like this grip, which is an interlocking grip, feels weird the first time you do it in golf. Today, I could not pick up a golf club and do like a baseball bat because for the last 30 years, this has been the grip. So this is now what I'm used to. Well,
right.
Now we can move this a little bit this way to strengthen that right hand, and that's going to feel weird. But what that allows me to do now, he explains, is the club head face will turn over and you'll get a little bit more right to left and you won't slice the ball, you'll get more distance. But unless I'm willing to practice this new grip, what happens is this, instead of going from good to great, they go from good to here. They say, I've gone back. And they say, I'll stay, bogey golf is good enough for me because I started shooting 95 here. Now I would have turned the corner and made it up to here where I'm breaking 85, but you have to be willing to go through the dip in performance to get to the next level. What I tell people is this, everything you're currently good at, you were bad at the first time you did it. First time you got behind the wheel of a car, right? For real.
Yeah.
10 and 2, seatbelt on. Did they have seatbelts when you were a kid? Okay. Mirrors adjusted, right? Everything in place, radio off, double check over the shoulder, all this stuff. And you drive down the highway with a death grip on the wheel, right? Checking every 3 seconds, the rear view mirror. 42 miles an hour, not 45, right? I saw you on the way to work this morning. You had coffee in this hand, your cell phone in this hand. You were steering with your knee while adjusting the radio. So what happens is when the first day, death grip, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And after a while it becomes, well, this is, I drive, I don't have to think about driving. You do things unconsciously after a while.
That becomes second nature.
You become an unconscious competent. In
Yeah.
the beginning, you're an unconscious incompetent. You're lousy, you don't even know you're lousy. And then you see that you should be doing it better, so you become a conscious incompetent. Now I know I suck. Eventually you practice enough and you move over to being a conscious competent. I can do it right, but I have to concentrate on it. Now, wait a second, where does the thumb go and where does my shoulder go? That's a conscious competent. You know Kerry Carter, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Kerry's a +4 handicap, which means when he shoots 72, he bitches about how bad he played, okay? Kerry Carter is not thinking about his thumb or his elbow or anything else. When he stands over the ball, he's thinking the brown spot right below the pin. It'll roll to the left. And he's focused on the brown spot on the pin. I'm thinking about my thumb and my elbow. And so he doesn't have to think about the mechanics. He's an unconscious competent of the swing. He's focused on where he wants it to get to. Whatever you do in life, whether it's sales, running a business, golf, you have to work hard enough to become an unconscious competent. What does Malcolm Gladwell says in the book Outliers? It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. How long have you been in the IT business, Roy?
Oh, 25 plus years.
You have forgotten more than I possibly could know about IT and security. I've been in the sales world for 50 years. I've forgotten more than you know about sales. I'm not an expert at what you do because I haven't spent my 10,000 hours. You're not an expert at what I do. So you're going to find somebody that's an expert at what you do. Find somebody who's as good as you want to be. And when you talk to somebody, here's been my challenge. You're not the product, and most people aren't their product. If I sell computer keyboards or software or IT service, I am not the software. I'm the guy who installs it. A lot of what I do with Sandler and my Sandler side of my world is sales training. So I am the product. So the problem with me is if I'm not 5 or 10 times better than you or the best guy you have on your sales team, you don't want to give me the time of day. So I have got to be that much better in the first 15 to 60 seconds and ask them one key question where it goes right between the eyes. They go, whoa, this guy understands my world. Ladies and gents who are listening to this, if you have a question that you can ask people when you walk in, where they go, wait a minute, she knows what I'm talking about. Oh my God, maybe he can help. They discover in that first second, and now you've got credibility.
Yeah.
So you got to have a couple of killer questions, and you got to tailor the question to the person, the personality, and the situation that you're in.
So Eric, you mentioned just now about, making that commitment and you're taking a, basically you take a dip before you start going back up, right? A lot of businesses, and I've encountered this not only, and I'm sure you have on your side of the world as well, but in security, and when you come about and you need to bring about change, right? And there's a change in mindset, there's a change of approach, etc. And we typically hear oh yeah, well, we tried that once and it didn't go well. And so you mentioned just now about, coming back to the comfort zone and then just, staying there. How do you work on getting businesses with the sales, process? How do you get them past that and get business owners past that?
In order to learn how to win, you have to first learn how to fail. You fell off the bike a lot more times than you stayed on in the beginning. But once you found your center of balance, it may have been years since you've ridden a bike, but if I put one in the parking lot behind you, in about 2 seconds, you'd be driving down the street.
Yeah.
My first kiss was not my best kiss. I didn't give up. If the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. You try again. What happens is most of the things that we learn when we're younger. When we're younger, it's okay to fail. You get into your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. When somebody fails at something, the first thing, if you got on a bike right now and you tried to ride it and fell down, your first concern was, oh God, I hope nobody saw. Because we don't want people to see us fail. Yeah. So you have to be willing to fail. Years ago, I was teaching a cold call boot camp and I was making cold calls in front of 30 people on a speakerphone. By numbers I pulled out of a hat, and the people in the room put the numbers in the hat. These were cold calls. And I got on the phone with the first one, and the first guy, about a minute into the call, said, "Wait a minute, this is a cold." He starts yelling at me and he hangs up the phone. One of the calls everybody dreads, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I look up, Roy, and I've got 30 people in the room like this. Yoda fell down. What's he going to do? I said, "That was awful, wasn't it?" They go, "Yeah, that was horrible." I said, "That was horrible." "Yeah, okay, so let's do another one." And I just dialed the phone and did another call. The next call, I wound up getting an appointment with. And afterwards, I said, "What if I quit after the first call?" Here's the thing. That guy right now has forgotten that I exist. I am probably never going to see him in my life. It doesn't matter. He said no to me. He wasn't even nice about it, but I didn't take it personal. One of the things that you have to do in sales and in business is learn how to get into role, like an actor, so you don't take things personal. When Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson were doing the scene from A Few Good Men,
Man, yeah.
Nicholson is screaming, "You want the truth? You can't hit." Afterwards, Tom said to Jack, "Jack, that's Academy Award stuff. You're going to win an award for this one." And they went out and they had a beer because in character, they hated each other. Off stage, they were themselves. So understand that you don't want to be duplicitous. You have to be true to who you are. But if you don't take anything that happens in a sales call personally, they can't touch you.
That's true. And I think that's where a lot of salespeople probably go south, right? It becomes personal, and that's maybe why a lot of people hate cold calling and don't really, and I know in your, particularly in Sandler, you must have seen this time and time again, getting people over that trench of overcoming that fear of cold calling.
Well, the reason you don't like the cold call is it's your mother's fault. Your mother taught you don't talk to strangers. And now your boss or your wife, in your case, says, "Go talk to strangers."
Yeah.
And your 6-year-old, because we all have a 6-year-old on the inside that would rather be out playing golf today than working, is saying stranger danger. But your boss says, "Call the strangers." And so we have call reluctance because we don't understand where the fear comes from. Part of it is you have to learn how your own mind works. Become a student of the mind. Understand communication styles, understand self-talk, understand where the voices in your head come from. Some of you are saying, "I don't talk to myself." Yes, you do. The voice that said that is the voice I'm talking about. You talk to yourself. "I don't know. Do I do that?" That's the voice. We all have it in there. And there's 4 or 5 different voices in your head. They come from different places, different ego states. You have to understand the difference between identity, who you are, and the role that you play as a business owner or salesperson. One of the problems that I have in the exit engineering side, Roy, is that business owners, especially men, identify themselves with their business. Their business is their identity. I'm a business owner. I'm the head of XYZ Industries. And they fear that if they sell that or lose that, they don't know how to define themselves as a person because their identity is based on their role. So if you take away the role, a lot of men die within a couple of years of retiring because they don't know how to adjust and play a different role in life.
That's interesting.
It's sad, but it's true. So men, get outside interests, learn about yourself, have other things that you can do. Don't define yourself in terms of what you do. I sold my Sandler business. I now have an inside man. I do exit engineering. I still do some sales for Sandler. I grow orchids. I love to cook. My wife and I have taken up art. I've done some beautiful pennant drawings and just started on pen and ink, which is easier than I thought it would be. I thought it would be tougher than pencil. It's actually easier. So if I were to be independently wealthy today, I've got a ton of things that I can do, because I've got interest outside of just doing business. So please make sure that you do that. Women tend to split their time. They work, they're mothers, they're wives, they're spouses, they're part of a bridge club. My wife plays mahjong, and they develop all these outside interests and they have all these different roles. Men, we have to get smart and do the same thing.
So talking about outside roles and different things,
Yeah.
let's digress a little bit here. You love music and you play instruments and so tell us a little bit about that. I know you play guitar and you play most string instruments and share with us.
I took drum lessons when I was a kid, and my dad had enough sense never to let me get a drum set. Even when he had the music store, I'd have to go to the music store on a Sunday and set the drum set up and play it. He would never let me bring one home. So out of frustration, when I was about 13 years old, I picked up a guitar and started to learn the guitar. Now, my brother Mitch had been taking guitar lessons for 2 years at this point. Well, within about 2 months, I was playing better than Mitch, and Mitch gave up the guitar. And I was pretty much self-taught. By the time I was 13 or 14, I was playing in rock bands. This was like 64, 65. I was the 14-year-old guy in a rock band. And played in rock bands all through the 60s and to the early 70s, did a little bit of studio work. I can play guitar, I can play bass, I can bang on a piano. You can see there's that's a baritone uke, and I have a tenor uke in the other room. I've started playing them. I can pick a little banjo, I can play a little mandolin. I never got into wind instruments and such. And in the early 70s, I sold all my electric equipment and went strictly acoustic. I still have 2 or 3 acoustic guitars. I have 1 electric and a couple of ukes. And I still play, not nearly as much as I used to, but I can hold my own. If you play a song, I can sit there and fill in stuff behind it that'll make it sound really good.
Nice. And then besides that, you've also mastered, because you're very good at the fingers and the string instruments. So now you've found stuff for the thumbs to do as well, right? You've got some green thumbs there.
Well, yeah, I love orchids. I grow succulents. I grow some of the most amazing succulents that put flowers out that are this big, that look almost alien in nature. A night blooming orchid cactus called a Cinderella cactus. And I've got a succulent that puts out a flower literally that's about this big. It's 6-pointed, comes out of this big pod that's bigger than your hand, and it spreads out, and it smells bad, and it attracts flies. It's pollinated by flies. These flowers last for 24 to 48 hours, and then they shrivel up and they're gone. But they're the most striking thing out of this plain looking plant.
Wow.
I enjoy playing with succulents. You give me a piece of something, I can probably grow it.
Awesome. So let's go back here a little bit on sales. And one of the things that, we encounter a lot in speaking to people is the hiring process when it comes to sales people. A lot of business owners complain that, I can't find the right salesperson, or, I've hired somebody and I thought they were good, but, I've come to find out that, they're not the right person for that seat, etc. So what is your advice, Eric, with all your experience, how do you really go about hiring a really good salesperson?
Salespeople are the toughest thing to hire. And here's why, Roy. They just have to be good enough to sell you in the interview. And if they're good enough to sell you in the interview, you start to get a warm, fuzzy feeling about the guy or the gal. And you bring them on board. And of course, the first month or two, they're training, getting to know you, getting to know where they fit in well. You go to lunch with them a couple of times. You meet their kids one day when they come by. By the 3rd month, they're a family member, and they've got some stuff in the pipeline. Maybe something's closed or close to closing, and you're feeling good, so you keep them. And about 6, 7, 8 months in, you realize that they've got a lot of stuff in the pipeline, but stuff isn't coming out. But now heck, you had them over for the holiday party. You went to their house for Easter. The Easter egg hunt was wonderful. And now you don't want to fire them. And normally it's 9 to 12 months. And you realize, you should have fired them in the 3rd month. And you've now wasted not only the 50 or the 75,000 in salary, but how much didn't they produce that should have been produced if you had somebody good? Right. An average bad sales hire will cost between $150,000 and $350,000 in lost cash and lost revenue. You add the 2 of them together. And most people hire salespeople when they need one. They're not prospecting. Why do salespeople avoid prospecting and cold calling? Because they face what? You said it a little earlier.
They face fear.
And they face rejection.
Yeah.
Okay, so why do business owners and sales managers recruit more often? Exact same fear. I'm going to screw it up. They're going to say no. And so they procrastinate on recruiting and hiring. First thing is you should be recruiting and hiring all the time, especially when you don't need somebody. You need to hire to a set of requirements, not to the personality of the person in front of you, not to their resume. All resumes look great, don't they? Number
Yeah.
one man, always in the top new business, conversion and growing account. It's all there, right? And then they move in house, and now they, it's coming, boss, it's coming, and they make excuses. It's the economy. It's COVID. I'm doing my best. I got one. It's one should be by the end of the month, and it never seems to come. You have to be. Hiring salespeople is tough. One of the things that I do for people is I do final interviews. I will actually recruit and hire salespeople, because if they can if they impress me, they're going to be good. And if I'm training them when I hire them for you, I'll guarantee they'll produce, or I'll replace them for you. Because I'm not going to hire somebody I don't think I can train. If I can train them, I know I can make them produce.
So this is service you're doing with via Inside Man. So you'll actually help a business find the right salesperson, interview them, and if needed, train them afterwards to make sure that they're able to meet your criteria.
Some of the people that do virtual CFO work when you need a part-time CFO?
Yeah.
What if you needed a part-time sales manager to help manage your team one morning a week, do daily call-ins, do the hiring when you need it? That's something else I've been called on to do for people. You can't afford me full-time, but to do a meeting with your sales team once a week, to do a training meeting once a month, to help recruit new people, to help design a comp plan. Salespeople are creatures of their comp plan, Roy. They do what the comp plan tells them to do, not what the boss tells them to do. I'll give you an example. If the comp plan says you get $5 for selling this, and you get $10 for selling this, and I come to you and say, Roy, we got a bunch of these in the warehouse, please move them today, and you make $5 on these. At the end of the day, you're going to come back and say, boss, I showed everybody these, but they all wanted this because I get $10 on this.
Yeah.
So they will listen to the comp plan, not to the boss. You have to understand the psychology of a salesperson. Having been one for 50 years and managed them for 50 years, I've played both sides of the coin. So it's real tough to bullshit me.
Awesome. Well, that's. I'm sure that there are many out there who may want to take you up on your on having you come in and at least give them and actually maybe I should ask you this, Eric. Do you work with businesses in terms of giving them sit with them and do some type of assessment in terms of what their sales process is and where they could optimize and not only from the hiring perspective but from their day-to-day processes?
I'm starting to offer something called a Forensic Sales Audit, where I will go through and look at them, look at their people, look at the comp plan, look at the product, look at the pricing, look at everything in terms of their sales funnel that brings things in, what the process looks like, how it comes out the back end, and basically say, here's what you're doing right, here's what you're doing wrong, these are the things that need to change, and this is what you need to change them to. So that's one thing that we're doing. We'll come in and we'll actually hire people. We'll come in and test the people you've got, figure out where the weak spots are, and then tailor a training program to them. But the one thing that I think business owners don't think enough about is that exit. They're going to exit at some point. One of the things that I do for people is I do a 1-hour consult, and it normally runs an hour to an hour and a half. We normally charge $500 for it. What I'm doing between now and the end of the year is fairly simple, Roy. I'm offering to do an hour with anybody, an hour plus with anybody. It's $97 with a money-back guarantee that's fairly simple. At the end of the hour, if you don't feel like you got $1,000 worth of value from me, just in that hour, I won't run the credit card. I will tell you this, I've made that offer for 17 years. I've only had one person ever ask for a refund. And nice. I told my wife that she was going to ask for a refund before I sat down to talk to her. The other thing they can do is this. I do a program called Why Salespeople Fail once a month. It's a freebie. It's 90 minutes long, and it's an introduction to the Sandler program. I do a program once a month called For Owners' Ears Only, Making Your Grand Exit. That is for business owners only. I think the next one is like middle of November. And once a month, I run a free CEO group. It's a CEO peer group So on the last Wednesday of the month, I believe this month it's on the 28th. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time. But if anybody ever does want to come to one of those programs, my website is aninsideman.com. Give me a call, get in touch with me, and I'll be more than happy to invite them to come to a class.
Yeah, and we'll what we'll do is we'll put in the links to Eric's website and all his contact details, etc., right below the video here. So please do reach out to Eric on that. I've actually sat through several of his trainings, and also the CEO peer group that he mentioned. Both my wife and I, and we walk out of that with a lot of value, because there are other CEOs in there or other business owners who are actually bringing, advice, problems, etc. And then you sit there and of course you start realizing, hey, I'm not the only one who's, I don't feel alone on this little island here. There are many other people living the same euphoria that we're living as business owners.
When they say misery loves company, that's true. And also it's lonely at the top. Business owners don't have anybody they can say, hey, I think I'm screwing up to. Well, if you get in a room full of other business owners, $500,000, a $5 million, a 15, a $3 million, a $2 million business, and you say, hey guys, I'm struggling with, and then the two ladies on the other side of the table says, me too.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you realize it's not just you. And what's happened when you get 10 or 15 minds together, I've been doing this for 20 years, I can sort of coax out of them the solutions that I know are going to help this person. So if you're looking for solutions, if you've never been a member of a CEO peer group, it's an amazing experience. And if nothing else, in fact, the next month we're doing a program and we're going to talk about upstream and downstream partners. How do you partner with people who get business before you that would lead to you? And how do you partner with people downstream from you who services they will need after you? And that develops an ongoing stream of incoming business, and you become a stream of incoming business for the people on the other side of the equation. It's a fun process.
That's interesting.
We're going to do about a half an hour on that this month.
So Eric, let me ask you here. We're in very difficult times, with this pandemic scenario, or situation, I should say, and everything else that's going on. Some businesses are surviving, others are teetering, and what do you recommend, to business owners who are having difficult times and this new era here, where some may actually still be working from home, etc. What are some nuggets that you can part with that may help them?
Well, I'm working from home for the last 6-7 months, and it's actually working out well. I'm actually finding that I'm more productive at home.
Yep,
I don't have travel time. I'm getting 6 weeks to the tankful. And by the way, that's not a joke. I think I've filled up 3 times or 4 times in the last 7 months. I'm not eating out. I've dropped 15 pounds because I'm not eating the cheesecake they put on the table at the luncheons, because you can't leave the cheesecake. I mean, it was there when you got there. It'd be rude. I'm not enjoying it. I'm sorry that we're in this situation, but there's an old Winston Churchill quote. He said, when you're going through hell, just keep going. So what's interesting is this. I lived through, in business, the recession, the Great Recession, 08, 09, 2010. And in 2009, when things really got bad, I made a decision. I said, I've decided I'm not going to participate in the recession. And I leaned in rather than pulling back. And the companies that leaned in and got aggressive about what they were doing in the last recession are not only the ones that made it through, but 2010, 2011 were record years for me, because I leaned forward. And I said, I'm going to do more marketing. I'm going to be a little more aggressive. I'm going to reach out a little bit more. We have a unique situation with COVID. Number one, people will take your calls because they're by the phone and they're not stuck in meetings all day long in rooms full of people. So what you have to be really good is you got to get good at phone communication. You got to be good at Zoom, not just the technology of Zoom, but actually talking to the person and connecting to somebody online, watching their body language. Listening, communicating. You can reach out. I mean, I was in a meeting earlier today and there were people from Australia, Norway, and New Zealand and Fort Wayne, Indiana on the call. So you get to expand the area that you're doing business in. So you got to look at this as what do they say? The Chinese symbol for crisis and opportunity are very similar. I think one contains parts of the others. So you can look at this as a crisis because it's an awful thing that's happened. But what it has done is this. It has moved us 10 years ahead in terms of our required use of technology.
That is true.
You guys would not be listening to this podcast normally, but you got time now, so you're going to see this podcast. I wouldn't normally be sitting here doing a podcast. I've got time for it now. So what we're doing is reallocating our time, and you got to get much more effective at communicating with people in electronic media, because you can get more done in 6 hours a day than you can in 10, because I don't have half an hour to go drive to Roy's to do this and then a half an hour to ride home. I didn't run up $8 in tolls and $4 in gas, and I didn't stop and get a Slurpee on the way home. So there's an awful lot of time that we're saving because of the situation. So you can look at it as a negative. Okay, I'm stuck at home. I'm not meeting people. And you can look at it as a positive. They're stuck at home, so they'll take my calls. But you
Nice.
have to do the behaviors and do the calls. You got to do the stuff that you know will lead to you having conversations. And don't try to sell people. Have conversations with them today. How are you doing? How's your business doing? How is this affecting you? You know, has anybody been hit? One of my clients, I asked the question, and one of the students said, yeah, my grandmother died this past week. Oh, Alex, that was awful. The next week I came back. The two people that were living with his grandmother also died. So he lost 3 family members in a week. When you realize that this is hitting people like that, and you're sensitive enough to ask about that long before you ever talk about business, now you can have conversations with people. So stop trying to sell people right now. Just have conversations and begin building relationships. And in a day, a week, or a month, they're going to figure out that they need what you've got. And at that point, they're comfortable with you. So it's not, you don't have to sell them anything. What's the old rule? People love to buy, they hate to be sold. So stop trying to sell people stuff right now. Build relationships. And if you find out what they need, the sales will follow. Does that help?
That's amazing. And that's, that kind of led you kind of took my next question, which would have been, if you could teach a new business owner, 1 or 2 things to remember when they start the business, what would it be? And I think the advice you just gave there just sort of summarized that whole.
I'm going to give them 6 words, which is my corporate vision statement, which answers that question. New business owners, old business owners. Here's my corporate vision statement. Number 1, have fun. Number 2, help people. And number 3 was stay in business, make money. So have fun, help people, make money. Or what I do is have fun, help people make money. Just remove 1 comma.
Interesting. So let me ask you here, and we're rounding the top here of our podcast, and so I have a question that I typically throw out here, which is, Eric, over your course of your career, you've fallen, you've gotten up, you've hit your head, you've learned, you've moved on. If you could go back in time today and pick 3 people that are alive to be your, Eric's board, who would they be and why?
3 people from any place or time to be on my board of directors, and why?
Yes.
Well, the first one, believe it or not, is my wife, Sharon.
Smart man.
No, wait a second. It's interesting. She thinks like a business person. And that's one of the things that impressed me with her when I met her 28 years ago. This lady is sharp. And I respect her opinion, and I know she's always looking out for what's best for us and for me. So I know that she has my best interest at heart. Who else would I pick to be on my board? Wow, that's a tough question, man. Who else would be on my board of directors? There's a gentleman named Marcus Cashai, who's in England, who's someone I've gotten to know over the last 10 years, one of the smartest people I've ever met. He wrote the Sandler book on channel selling. In fact, he and I have a get together tomorrow. We're doing a Zoom meeting tomorrow.
Nice.
Catching up on stuff. When we went to England, he actually met us at the hotel. He took us to a comedy club and we went out for Thai food in London. And he drove over an hour and a half just to get there, just to go do that with us. Really super guy, very, very, very smart. Who else? Now you got me. Do I go with a religious figure? Do I go with a famous business figure?
It's whoever you feel that would, fill that third spot on that super board.
I need somebody who, one of the things that has been one of my weaknesses is organization. So I imagine somebody like Bill Gates, who knows how to build an organization from an idea, because that's the one area that I've always had to hire people for. So Bill Gates, my wife, and Marcus. And Marcus will be very happy to hear, if he ever sees this podcast, that he's in that group, because he's met my wife. So he knows the competition he's up against.
Wow, that's great. That sounds like that's an amazing board. I don't know Marcus. I definitely will look him up, because now you have me intrigued. I do know your wife. And I think she probably will give Bill Gates a good run for his money as well, with regards to organization and keeping things intact. Eric, I can't thank you enough for the knowledge that you have shared here today with our listeners and viewers. I'm sure that as this as we put out our podcast here. I know over the term of your career that you have touched so many here in Central Florida and many other places of the world that I'm sure everybody will jump on this. But thank you very, very much. And
thank you for inviting me, Roy. It's been a pleasure. And if you want to come back sometime and talk about a completely different subject, I'm more than open to do that.
And we will take you up on that, because we'll circle back here, and we do plan on having you back in a few weeks or months to catch up and lend some more nuggets, so to say, to business people. And folks, thank you very much for joining us this week. That's a wrap here on the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Eric Shulman, thank you very, very much. Check down below for all of Eric's contact details. Make sure you reach out to him and try and get into one of the, his CEO forum that he has, or some of the other trainings, etc. Or if anything, just reach out. I mean, I'm speaking as one of his students, and I will tell you that, spend a half an hour with him and you'll walk away a different person. Thanks, stay safe, and we'll catch up on the next one. Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our podcast. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you, or if you know someone who fits the criteria, then be sure to visit our website at dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. That's dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next podcast video is live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car ride, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using the corresponding links below. Thanks, and once again, keep crushing it.